Hey guys, I hope you are well. Want to give you another, or actually two, key court updates. So today we're going to talk about Enri, and we're going to talk. This is big news that you probably don't already know because you might have heard the good news from Enri. Some news about Mindy and their restraining order. So we'll talk in depth. We'll start with Enri, but we'll also not bury the lead. ZDT is officially served and scheduled for the 12th, so we'll delve into that. But I think it's important to clear up some key misconceptions as to Enri's phrasing of the success and the outcome of the trial that now no longer exists. The big question is, did he cop a plea? Did he get the case dismissed? Or is it actually sort of a battle of semantics where it essentially got dismissed, but one could argue he did some semblance of a plea? So I will start off by saying Enri is not lying, and I have seen documentation that proves that the case, at least in that court, unlike what it says online, because that hasn't been updated, that case, at least, if you want to use the word dismissed or moved to a different type of court, what ended up happening is Enri simply pled guilty to an infraction. Infraction being in the same category as somebody jaywalking. An infraction being the same category as somebody double parked. You know, there's a type of courts. There's criminal felony court, then there's misdemeanor, and then there's the municipal violations and municipal infractions that ultimately, oftentimes, and with Enri's case, that will be the result as well, will be expunged. So it will have no semblance of lingering effect or presence on your record because it'll get expunged. But even if it is, it's merely an infraction. So that's what Enri got. He got an infraction with no probation. So it's going to be expunged whether he gets in trouble or not. He has no probation, and he has absolutely not a single dollar in a fine to pay. To me, to interpret it as such, I would say the case got dismissed because the case got dismissed from the current court that Enri's case was previously in to a court that deals with infractions and more minor violations, not crimes and not even misdemeanors. So did his case get dismissed? If you want to play semantics and spin, and if Enri was being the Bill Clinton comeback kid in 1992. Remember, Bill Clinton didn't actually win the New Hampshire primary. It was Paul Tsongas, but for all intents and purposes, Bill Clinton made the comeback, was called the comeback kid, and many people to this day think he won the New Hampshire primary. So if DOA is Paul Tsongas, perhaps Enri is the Bill Clinton in this situation, but ultimately you interpret it as such, as he got his case dismissed, as Bill Clinton, many people felt like, for all intents and purposes, he won the New Hampshire primary. Enri got his case dismissed. So again, if you want to have a battle of semantics, was it completely thrown out? No, but it was dismissed with prejudice. I mean, it was transferred to that court with prejudice, meaning that cannot be tried again either. So 90% of the same effects, 95% of the same effects of Enri's case being dismissed. That hasn't been updated in the court. Because remember, the court says, okay, you pled something, it's been processed, and the court is taking what's already dogs barking. The court has taken what's already been processed and just updated that there's been a guilty plea. So by what existed already, the court just processed that he pled guilty to what existed already, which were the punishments of the misdemeanor. That didn't happen. So the court updated that there was a development, but didn't update it that it got dismissed to a different type of court. So that's the only thing that hasn't happened in the computer system. I would say there's absolutely no lying, because you also want to examine, well, what are you trying to do here? There's essentially two things. For DOA's case, it's a little scarier because effort number one is you're trying to avoid jail time, right? So DOA doesn't even know if he's going to be able to avoid jail time, let alone even if he successfully avoids jail time, he may very well still not be allowed to be outside of Scientology. Here's the thing. A lot of these protesters have fought these restraining orders. Danny quite valiantly fought his restraining order, for example. Danny didn't need to. Danny wasn't looking at any criminal charges. He wasn't really looking at jail time, although some attorneys try to threaten him otherwise. Danny did that so he could continue sticking it to Scientology and could continue with his efforts in the movement by continuing to show up and protest. Danny was successful. Guess who else is successful in that? Enri. Now, Enri's success is even better than, remember, I went out to Austin and sat in on the Pearl Snappy case, and that was another pretty trumped up charge, where essentially the baby was split for Pearl Snappy, but she was still able to protest at the Scientology religion. And unlike Enri, it was a little slightly worse because she had to pay the fine, and it still counted as a very minor misdemeanor. That might have also gotten knocked down the violation, but I'm not positive. I might be wrong or right about that. But she did have to pay like a $150 fine. So Enri doesn't even have to pay the fine. So remember, when you do these court cases, another reason you're doing this is because you want to set precedent. You want to say these are the chicaneous charges that these previous protesters have faced. Here are the results of them. One of the results with Enri is indicative for future prosecutors, saying don't waste your time in trying to get these misdemeanor charges, because at the end, if you are effective and you know what you're doing, unlike maybe some other person, then it will be simply winnowed down to an inconsequential, non-life affecting infraction, which is what happened to Enri. So Enri is still able to protest. At the end of the day, that's why I'm here. I'm here to watch the court, give you a report, and let you know which of the players that we're invested in are still allowed to protest in the Church of Scientology, or are not allowed to go to the church, protest the Church of Scientology. And there's another bit of lamentation in all of this, because at the end of the day, I think DOA's charges are complete bullshit. And the guy might hate me, but I'm rooting for him to walk free. The problem is he doesn't like that I'm acknowledging the reality, but the reality is that he has thrown up on himself and hasn't utilized his attorney when he should have been utilizing his attorney. Think about the difference. Yes, I fully believe that DOA is going to hire an attorney for his actual trial. The problem is he hired Shaheen Mansouri, who also helped Enri and Josiah. He's utilizing him way too late. Look what Enri did. Enri utilized the Mansouri law firm from day one. And I hate to say it, guys, but for the people that are upset about people constantly raising money all the time, look what Enri did. He says, hey, I need $5,000 for this retainer. And he got the case thrown out. There wasn't, oh my God, there's going to be 60,000. There's going to be this. It's going to be, just in the future, it might be 80,000. You don't know how bad this is going to get. And you're almost creating this narrative of foreboding and pressure on your viewers to donate not 5,000, but let's ratchet it up to 60,000. Enri just got that 5,000, and that was it. And people invested the 5,000 in the hopes of there'd be a successful outcome. It didn't go to trial, and there was a successful outcome. Enri is still able to protest. One of the ways that Enri did this, he utilized the lawyer to make various motions to cross the T's and dot the I's that you could only do with a law license. But Enri did most of the legwork. And what he's been doing is he's uncovered a lot of corruption with Heidi Soto Feldstein, the city attorney, has subpoenaed a lot of people and was essentially pressuring a lot of people from the city attorney's office to go on the stand and explain why they want to follow through with, if there was a full trial, why they wanted to follow through with the full trial. So that was his, and he kind of had people shaking in their boots. You have to have a strategy when you're trying to save your ass. Remember, Enri was also looking at, I think, up to a year in jail. Enri was looking as well at serious jail time. He did not get that because he was vigilant. He showed how ridiculous the case is, and he threw it back in the staffers of the city attorney's face, where he could say, are you sure you actually want to go forward with this? Ultimately, they went forward in some small way. They kept, one of them, they kept trying to winnow down the charge to initially full trial, misdemeanor, we're going to get jail time, to, well, do you want to cop a fine and not being outside of Scientology? Enri said, hell no. So there was a lot in between that they came to Enri with. But this, second to it being completely dismissed, this is quite a big victory that Enri got. So anybody saying that Enri had a loss, that people invested in something that was unsuccessful, entirely untrue. No fine, no criminal charge, no jail time. The dude is still allowed to protest at any Scientology building, including beautiful Big Blue. So for anybody to say that this wasn't a good outcome, if you're on the side of the protesters, and I'll say I'm biased, it was a good outcome. For anybody to say is anything other than that is quite frankly disinformation. So Enri was aggressive. He was on the ball. He had a lot of follow through, and you wonder what DOA could have done if he were a little more vigilant and a little more aggressive and just did a little more legwork in all of this time before the actual trial begins. And DOA still has 2 weeks, so maybe he still can, right? So big news, big victory for Enri. I thought I was going to cover that trial, but unfortunately, the trial no longer exists. So that is now in the history books. Hopefully we'll see Enri out. I think he's interested in becoming an attorney, which I think he'd be pretty good at. Subsequently, Mindy, ZDT. ZDT has officially been served. ZDT, in response to him saying he's not been served and he's not validly served, went into this long, detailed explanation as to why he is not served. Well, again, stupid idiot, you acknowledging your awareness of this restraining order, it's the same as being served, or at least you are endorsing the fact that you are willingly not allowing yourself to be served. Remember, the only way you could be successful in your defense against an RO case by not being served is if you said you were in some retreat in the Himalayan mountains and there is no way that any of this could have gotten to you, so you could have been aware. Once you endorse your own awareness of the case, then you are served, whether you've literally been served or not. Remember, I was service attempt number 1. I was served, that counted as an attempt. I was service attempt number 1 at the courthouse. Via Twitter, which the judge ruled that is valid service. ZDT has been served that way as well. And he's made it worse for himself by talking about how he's not been served, so he has officially confirmed that he is aware of it and therefore has officially been served. The other thing is, he's going off on a diatribe, attacking, insulting, offending, saying disgusting, unsurprisingly gross things about Mindy. Guess what? Great. That will all be used in the RO trial, which is scheduled again for May 12th. So, look, I think if you want to wonder, is Mindy going to be successful? Thanks to other people, not thanks to DOA, but thanks to Enri, thanks to Solomon, there's been a precedent created. Mindy could go up in the stand and say, this guy's been so violent, vitriolic. At this moment, already 2 people have successfully gotten a restraining order against him. So they walked so we could run, other people could run in prosecuting maybe ZDT in the future. Mindy, Solomon was a little shaky on the sand, I must say. You want to talk about somebody who just makes you smile, who's just kind and nice, and you could just see that is like 100% authentically pure of heart, you just want to like her, is Mindy. Mindy's like the most likable protester. So if Enri and Solomon can be successful, Mindy's, I hate to say it, but likability matters in court, and Mindy is kind of supremely likable. So her versus the prick of ZDT, I think that's going to be a slam dunk case. So I will be there. Finally, let's talk about everything that's happening on the 11th and the 14th. It's a lot to keep track of. And I'm going to try to do my best to make all 4 hearing developments. So on the 12th, there's Mindy, and I believe, yes, on the 12th, there's both the RO hearing for Mindy as well as the conclusion for Solomon. The annoying part is they're scheduled at 2 different courts a mile away from each other luckily at No, unluckily at the same time. So I'm going to be watching like a hawk to see which one goes up first. I will guarantee you I'll make one of them. Hopefully I should make both of them. If one starts promptly and one starts an hour late, I should be able to do that. But I'll be kind of running around like a headless chicken trying to figure out what is happening at what. I'm not like DOA with all this coughing. What is happening in what court case. And then finally, so that would be the conclusion, part 2 of the Solomon RO, which the judge said he was leaning in favor of Solomon, whereas before he was not. But then in that moment, ZDT again endorsed Solomon, calling him a pedophile, and said, yeah, I'm a pedophile, isn't this funny? So the judge remarked that ZDT appeared to find humor and laughter and some joy out of being called a pedophile, and therefore not worthy of restraining order. So I think that's how that case is going to go, if ZDT even shows up, really. Then finally, on the 14th, we have DOA. Should be the full trial, but there might not be the full trial because they have to convene a jury. Remember, DOA wants a jury trial. So they have to convene a jury trial that might happen on the 14th. There might be a continuance for the actual thick of the trial might be later, but I'll show up to try to hear what is going to happen. And one thing I'll guarantee to show up for is ZDT's hearing, criminal hearing on the 14th. So he might be forced to actually make a plea by then. We'll see. But a lot of stuff to look forward to in the future. And again, you'll have 3 different cases for me you'll get 3 different cases of me reporting on the 12th and on the 14th. So do stay tuned, and it's going to be pure Scientology for quite a bit of time. I think I'll head back to New York, as I was mentioning, going to fly out from Montana to LA, head back to New York for the New York City mayoral election, then probably head back west to LA. And if Alberta becomes its own country and they have a separatist vote, which might be happening, I think I'm going to have to do a little side detour to Calgary. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And boy, guys, just taking a departure from all this SPTV war shit was so nice. So it hasn't gotten me views, but I've really enjoyed doing it. I feel like it was meaningful. Some people showed their appreciation, which I appreciate. And you need to separate yourself and take a 2-month long break from the interpersonal dynamics. That is all just a giant sandbox. So there will be more of that, just for the clearing of my own head, quite frankly. It's too much. But again, I'll be following DOA, and hopefully we will be crowning Whitshare as the head of the movement in the future. It's going to be the hexes that take down Scientology. So I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.